You're listening to Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Making lifestyle changes is hard for many people, and not knowing what to do or how to do it makes the task all the more daunting. Here at Health Nuts, we focus on helping you live a fuller life by discussing everyday health issues and exploring breakthrough solutions on how to overcome them. And now, here's your host, Dr. Chris Carr.
And welcome back to another episode of Health Nuts. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Carr, and I'm looking so forward to hearing today's guest, and that is Dr. Darrell Misak. He is a doctor of naturopathic medicine, a licensed pharmacist, and a father of 5 kids. After receiving his Bachelor of Science degree in pharmacy from West Virginia University in 1992, he gained 3.5 years of university hospital pharmacy experience at Duke University Medical Center. During his hospital pharmacy experience, Dr. Misak's primary focus was clinical rounding in oncology and general medicine. As he began to realize the pitfalls of traditional medicine and pharmacy, he started his continued search for truth in health, which directed him to naturopathic medicine. In 1996, he moved his family across the country to Portland, Oregon, where he received his doctorate of naturopathic medicine from National College of Naturopathic Medicine. Additionally, while in school, he was blessed with the opportunity to gain compounding pharmacy experience at Lloyd Center Pharmacy. Since moving to the Pittsburgh area, Dr. Misak has continued his search for truth in health with a goal to teach and change the world. He performs lectures and hosts a bi-monthly radio program, A Natural Connection, where he teaches the concepts of bioelectric chemistry. Dr. Misak owns and operates Pittsburgh Alternative Health in the South Hills of Pittsburgh. He also focuses health analysis and how to support optimal energy formation that results in natural health restoration. Today's topic is going to be on abundant health through analysis and not diagnosis. I know it sounds complicated. He's going to simplify it and give us just a ton of action steps and a ton of knowledge on how we can really just increase the overall vitality of our life. So with that being said, Doc, welcome. Great to have you.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So that was a very formal intro of you. A little less informal. What would you share with us?
Well, there's a lot. Started pharmacy school. If you want to know me, I'm a person who is, I used to be, how do you beat the system, or how do you figure it out? How does it work? And led the pharmacy and understanding and then Duke. And then I saw people not getting better. And then I went to naturopathic medical school. And like I said, seeking truth. How do I fix things? I'm a fixer. I love to tinker at home, work on cars. I like to fix things, and the human body is my fascination. And so outside of that, get me outside, let me enjoy the outdoors. But my passion is understanding health, and the deeper you go with that, you get into some concepts that really can blow your mind.
Yeah, and I am so looking forward to hearing this message, because I think it's really gonna turn on some lights for a lot of people who really don't know much about this topic and what they can do to better implement the health in their life. Before we get to the nuts and bolts of this topic, I always love to start with a success quote, an affirmation of yours. You have one you'd like to share?
I was looking, and there's a bunch of them, because if I talk about the aspect of bioelectric chemistry and things, a couple like, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, you must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That gets pretty deep, Mm-hmm. And so then you turn around, and the works of Dr. Carey Reams, which I'll be mentioning today, he was like, why guess when you can know? And also, illness starts when you continue to burn up more energy than you take in. And it falls in line with a lot of natural concepts, and it comes down to this aspects of, okay, if we are made in God's image and we're all pure energy stuck in these bodies that are made of minerals, how do we optimize what we do? And that's those quotes just kind of from the geniuses before me, and it just inspired me to say, okay, there's more to learn here.
Yeah, one of the things I just loved what you shared is don't guess, test. And
yes.
I think that a lot of times a lot of folks that they guess about their health instead of getting a definitive answer, and they don't really know what to do, and they run out of options. So I'm going to really look forward to hearing more about the testing and the protocols you have in regard to this. So in regard to the overall topic, the analysis, what are some things you do in the office, and what are you doing for analysis of various conditions through the method that you're using?
Analysis comes down to a few things. And, when I mentioned about the chemistry, I look at urine and saliva chemistry. I look at what's called a Brix value that gives me an idea of sugar utilization and oxygen availability in the body. I look at pHs, because when you understand chemistry and we hear about oxidation reduction reactions, and if you remember all that, the speed of those reactions is governed by pH. And so body pH is really important, whereas the blood barely changes. The urine and saliva, the urine can give you an idea of post-digestive pH, and the saliva can give you an idea of pre-digestive pH. I look at conductivity of the urine, which gives you an idea of the amount of salts and protein waste that's coming out in the urine, and too high a conductivity can be like too much electricity, and not enough means the electricity can't get where it needs to be. I look at cell debris and what type of cellular waste, because as the body has cell turnover, there should be a healthy turnover coming out in the urine, and when there's not, you got to question, okay, where is this stuff going, And then I look at protein and nitrates, and nitrates and ammonia nitrates, which give an idea of protein building versus protein destruction in the body. So from an analytical perspective, this equation gives us a perspective of what's happening. Then, like behind me, we look at blood. Look at a drop of blood on a microscope, and from an analytical perspective, if you see certain patterns in the blood, then this has to be happening. So there's definitive signs that can suggest, hey, this is when these cells are present, there's a B12 or folic acid deficiency. When these cells are present, there's a potential iron deficiency. When these cells are present, there's excess of oxidative stress. When these cells have these markers, it's a sign of overload of a viral activity or parasitic activity. And so, I have to reiterate that the one thing that I do not do is diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent, because it's illegal. We don't do, we're not here to diagnose you, because a diagnosis is a guess. From an analytical perspective, I'm looking at certain chemistry markers that a genius mathematically determined what the ideal was, and we know how to move it towards that ideal. I'm looking at blood, and we know what the ideal looks like, and when it's not there, it suggests certain things. And then I also use electrodermal techniques called EAV or electroacupuncture by Vol, and we check electrical impedance and stress the body with frequencies to acupuncture points, looking for reactivity to frequencies associated with foods or chemicals, because it's all electric. We're testing our electric system with frequencies associated with these things, and if it throws it out of balance, it's like a yes, no answer. Let's stay away from these. And EAV testing has been shown at least at roughly 70, as high as 95% effective for identifying these food sensitivities. We don't claim it to be diagnostic, but what we're doing is saying, hey, you react to this electrically, stay away from it. And we see a high degree of positive response from people staying away. So in essence, it's an education, and I teach something different than what you get from elsewhere. And we say that we teach health and observe restoration, because the body restores itself if you create the right scenario and environment for it to do so.
Yeah, I specifically love that last point, how you remove the interference and you remove all these outside obstacles, and the body is able to rectify and be at a higher state of health than it was prior to. What are some things that maybe your patients or people you're seeing, what are they doing in their day-to-day life that are causing their blood work, their pH levels to go off kilter?
Oh, the world lifestyle, if you look at what we're given to, that's being told is our food, and the air that we're breathing, and the water, and what's in our water, and the pesticides that are on our food, and the genetic modifications of food, and the food science where they're taking proteins and stuff from food, putting them in our foods, calling it to enhance or improve the shelf life or stuff, but it's still considered food because there were compounds from it, and what those things are doing. And when we ask about the incidence of food sensitivities and these type of things, these lay the foundation for those things to occur. So when you're looking, on my website, something that I came before I started looking into the chemistry and looking at a purist aspects of health. I teach what's called the 5 phases of health. Phase 1 is identify, just general burdens in life: pure air, pure food, pure water, electromagnetic field protection, grounding and things like that, how we are electric and how the electrical fields and microwaves and scalar waves and all these things can affect us, and things that you can do to protect yourself. The water quality, I only drink distilled water now, and I don't sit here, I wouldn't tell listeners just to start drinking distilled if you're not remineralizing, because everything about chemistry is an aspect of remineralizing. But distilled water is, when you're looking electrochemically, it adapts to your electrical system, your frequency, and becomes a medium of exchange so you can flush out your cellular waste. What are you showering in? Do you have a shower filter? What are you breathing in? All that snowstorm when the light comes through your window in the morning, do you have something to clear that out of the air, and ionization? What are you washing your fruits and vegetables with? When you're looking at health, it's more important to what to avoid and protect yourself from than it is what it is to take to fix it. And that's what I don't like about even my own profession. It's becoming, we're functional medicine here. Take this. It has nothing to do with what you take. It's let's identify your stressors, what's depleting your energy, what you need to get away from. Let's take those away, and let's feed your body with support. And supplementation is supposed to be that, just supplement to a healthy diet. And when you get the body to respond and move in the correct direction, it's already fixing itself.
As we have your 5 phases, which I love. So I was doing the research. Yeah, the first phase, which goes in that recognition first with the environmental stresses, you hit onto a bunch of them from just, there's a plethora you just gave from the food to the air to the water. But the second one is a big one, because I think most folks, we have the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, and we know you're not going to heal if you're if you're in the sympathetic all day long. So how would somebody identify if they're in phase 2 and they're in that kind of fight or flight all day, response?
What I list as phase 2 is more of that analytical approach. Identify your specific burden. So that's where historically, if you look, I'm talking about doing electrodermal testing, or I'm talking about, looking at your blood. And if you have microcytes, but you don't have, codocytes, which are small cells versus other cells that suggest iron deficiency, they can be associated with heavy metal burdens, or whatever it may be. So, but phase 2 is, what are my burdens? What explains what led me to be here? Am I reacting to molds? Do I have mold in my house? Am I reacting to EMF? Do I have a Wi-Fi system in a plug right by the head of my bed? So phase 2 is, what are my specific burdens? Phase 3 is supplementation, and that's just that. It's, what do I need based upon where I am? So if you reduce the total load on your body, you reduce specifically and identify and eliminate specifically what your burdens are. You functionally support your body to enhance things. The natural response is phase 4. Your body naturally starts to detoxify because you've improved efficiency. And phase 5 is that standpoint of recognition, is self-awareness. What's still not right? What do I need to do? I figured this out, but there's still something not wrong. That continual self-awareness to go back and identify, what do I still need to improve upon?
So on a maybe a yearly basis, or someone who really has never ventured out, that this is for someone who might be mired in the medical model right now and being on X, Y, and Z different medications. What do you recommend to someone like that? How they would know, one, how toxic they are, if they're expressing symptoms? What are you telling somebody like that?
Well, if they're coming in here, I can give them a perspective.
Yeah.
If someone's out there saying, hey, they're just listening, where do I start? How do you identify food burdens? One thing I found is that when I test people for food sensitivities, I can typically tell them what their blood type is. So if it goes back to that blood type diet, I find that people react to foods that the blood type diet says to avoid, but I don't find that they react to everything the blood type diet says to avoid. So if they want to start with a modified elimination diet, do the blood type diet for a month, and then introduce one food every 5 days. And then see, and you will learn, you'll probably learn what your food intolerance is through that way. But to identify, am I reacting to molds, or am I reacting to something environmental that's off-gassing in the building that I work in, or something to that effect, that becomes a little bit more complex. And you have to sit there and see, like every leukemia patient that I've ever dealt with at some point in their life has been exposed to solvents and paints. They worked they worked either in an auto body shop or something, and benzenes and toluenes get into the bone marrow and disrupt how your cells produce. So how do you identify those type of things? There are some environmental testings and things, but in reality, what do you tell somebody? Start with diet. Start with diet and pure water, and go from there, because when you learn, hey, I know it's not in my diet anymore, then you say, okay, what am I missing, and why is my body not working, and where do I go from here?
Yeah, especially with with pure water. I know obviously you and I know exactly what pure water is, but somebody who may not have an understanding, what do you mean by pure water?
To me, it's distilled water, steam distilled. I have clients who do okay with RO water. I have clients, if they're out buying water, I'll say, well, go ahead and get smart water. It's steam distilled, and they have some basic magnesium and potassium added back into it, and then you have all these people who are like, yeah, but you need to drink alkaline water because it's oxygenated and it's organized and structured so it makes more available oxygen to you. And for short term, from an ionization perspective and detox, it works. We have an ionizer in our office, and when we have people doing infrared sauna, we make ionized water available to them because it does improve efficiency of toxin elimination, But long term, it can cause some serious compromise, and so people aren't aware of that. They just think it's the cure-all. And I think even Mercola has a good article out there about, the long-term negative attributes of drinking alkaline water.
I cannot agree. I cannot agree with you more with the long-term issues that alkaline water is, because we know, especially in your GI tract, we do not want you to be alkaline. We almost want you to be neutral, but if you end up becoming more alkaline, it's going to cause a host of issues. So I think that
constipation, dry skin, malabsorption, heavier metal, iron deficiencies, selenium, zinc don't get utilized. I mean, there's a lot of things that come with pH regulation.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You get into the pH levels alone, where the standard American diet puts a lot of patients, and we know 95% of conditions, specifically cancers, we're talking acidic-based issues.
Way acidic, yeah. And you can see that in the blood. There's patterns that appear in the blood. You start seeing crystals start appear in the blood when you're looking at acid patterns which correlate with arthritic conditions. And sometimes you can look at the blood and say, I bet you feel this way because of what's going on. And people are like, that's amazing. It really can take people back.
It does. With your phase 4, which I like a lot as well, with a lifestyle change and the detoxification and healing, you go into a little more depth about that with a lifestyle change and all that stuff.
Well, when you're looking at lifestyle change, I'm trying to identify a diet specific for you. I look at your chemistry, and based upon the chemistry, you'll know that if someone's acidic, things are moving too fast through the digestive tract. They don't pull nutrients out the way that they should. They're not breaking things down. They tend to get loose stools. When somebody's too alkaline, things tend to slow down. You see different parts of the body being affected. You see malabsorption of certain minerals. The chemistry, I can have people come in here and look at their chemistry and don't even look at their history. And I could sit here and say, you might have these symptoms. And people will be like, you just completely explained everything about me. How do you know that from my urine and saliva? Because there's patterns that the chemistry dictate, of what would happen in association with that. And as you move it towards the ideal, all those associated symptoms just start disappearing because the body self-restores because you've improved energy efficiency. So does that kind of answer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It ends up being, kind of go back to what we were talking about initially, when you're not guessing, you're testing, and you're basing everything off of, abnormalities that are showing up in the blood work and the urinalysis, which is going to show where they're deficient at.
Mm-hmm.
So once they become deficient, then you're phase 5, which ends up being optimizing their health. But one of the things I love that you say there is by setting higher goals, and it's almost like you're saying for the person to actually take personal accountability.
If you want to be healthy, it's a choice. Bottom line, you know, all of us go to the parties or to the church picnics, and you look at the food there and say, okay, what do I really want if I'm seeking help? But you know what you do is you learn your health patterns and things like that, and learn what constitutes health, and you learn how you feel when you do that. Do we cheat? Heck yeah, we cheat. We're human. You know, we're gonna go and, you know, there's certain things I won't touch. I won't touch pork. I won't touch tuna. I won't touch shellfish. You know, across the board, they mess you up. Period. You know, they take somebody's chemistry and they throw you into patterns that put stress on the heart, decrease oxygen availability. They make you hurt. They make you achy. They make you sluggish. You know, and I've measured it, and I can show it, and I can explain it. And when people eat that stuff, I can look at the chemistry and say, 3 days ago you ate pork, and they're like, how do you know that? You know, and it's just these things show up in the chemistry, and so you learn a pattern of health for you. And so when you're coming here, I'm looking at your chemistry. I'm looking at what you don't need to eat. I'm looking at whether you're a fast or a slow oxidizer. So metabolically, we're having you eat so many carbs or so much protein or fat so your body can, you know, keep in tune and be more stable. And we identify what's specific for you. And once you do it and you feel the way that you can feel, then that choice comes out like, wow, do I really want to eat that? Because I know what I'm going to feel like, and it's going to last for 2 to 3 days before I start getting back on track. And once you do it once, it's easy to do it again and again and again. And I'll have people who disappeared and they come back and say, I just need to get tuned back up. Help me get back on track. You know?
Yeah, I talk about shellfish all the time as well. And I think one of the reasons, obviously, which I'm assuming you're going to agree with, is just the amount of inflammation it's producing. And on top of it, they're bottom feeders. So the reason for the audience, for them, why shellfish and pork, why those two foods specifically?
Well, they're both bottom feeders. The way Kerry Reams explained it is that, you know, take for example, because he's all about energy. And he says what they do is, like, take for example, you have 2 fires that are the exact same. And then you have 2 5-pound logs, okay, that are the exact same. Now this one, I'm going to chip. I'm going to run it through a chipper, and I'm going to take all the chips and throw them on the fire. And this one, I'm just going to set the log in the fire. So the chipped wood is like shellfish and pork. It burns so hot in the body that our body can't process it. So it burns up hotter and faster, and it causes cellular destruction. And as the cells can't handle that heat, because it's all about energy, they fall apart and release all this junk into our system, driving up salts, driving up sugars, driving up nitrates, decreased oxygen availability, increased stress on the heart, you know. And so it's from an energy perspective. You know, he found out by chance because he kept food logs back in the 1940s and 30s when he was learning all the chemistry. He studied it for over 40 years. And then one day he was reading the book of Leviticus and said, oh my, all the foods that people are recording that I'm seeing a direct change in their chemistry, where biblically don't eat these foods. And everybody from a Christian standpoint says, well, hey, Peter and Paul says it's okay to eat your meat. But they were devout Jews. They probably never would have touched pork in the first place. However, you know, the Bible says, hey, all things are permissible. So it's not a sin to eat them, but all things are not beneficial.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's where, you know, you could take it from a biblical perspective. You can take it, but when you measure it, when I can show you and measure, and you come in after it and I say, okay, you're probably feeling this way. You're probably not sleeping. You're probably thirsty. They're like, yeah, I am. And I'm like, that's because the human body cannot tolerate that load on the body, particularly people who are eating pork, shellfish 2-3 times a week. It's a heart attack waiting to happen.
Yep. I cannot agree with you more. Yeah, especially because you get into all the cholesterol issues. It's just we could spend a whole podcast just on that.
Oh yeah, easy.
One of the things that I'd love to get to, and that goes into really, I'm real big on giving the audience takeaway info. And so Health Nuts, we're all about giving the audience 3 health nuggets that they can implement in order to do the right thing with their own overall health. What are 3 health nuggets that you have and something you could share?
Well, we've already talked about it. Phase 1, pure air, pure food, pure water, EMF protection. Learn a lifestyle of protection in this crazy chemical-based world. Lower the total load on your body. If you buy organic food, you still have to wash it for any residues that are being sprayed on it, and washing your fruits and vegetables. What kind of water are you drinking? Do you have shower filters, or are you cooking in filtered water? Because the food's going to take up what's in there. Do you have an air purifier or a whole house water or air filtration system? Electromagnetic fields, and learning about EMF protection, because everybody's on their phones and cell phones, and these devices have been shown to reduce the amount of radiation that they're being emitted. And if your energy, these things can affect, and there is EMF disease that they're now showing with. If you want to start changing your health, you have to start with food. Not only quality of food, but food sensitivities. What do I not eat? The number one problem is wheat. And you can go under food science, and number one, 99% of wheat that's non-organic is sprayed with glyphosate. And glyphosate is just a whole topic in itself, that we could go into hormonal disruption and cancer and things. But 99% of wheat products are sprayed with glyphosate. So they start dying, go to seed, they get more wheat, but then you're getting trace amounts of these toxins. And then now they have processes to speed that wheat in order to be ready for baking and stuff, versus the old traditional way of time-honored drying, and so in those ways increase compounds that are associated with diabetes and everything. So I find that out of all the foods that I test for, wheat is by far the most common. And I find that spelt, which is an organic grain that's classified as a wheat, does not react. It's a great substitute, tastes well. So, avoid food sensitivities. And if you don't get tested for them, at least try the blood type diet and introduce. And I would tell most people to go wheat free. The last one is lemons. Lemons are your friend. When you're looking from an energy perspective, pretty much all food has what's called a cationic effect. You have cations, which are positively charged, and you have anions, which are negatively charged. And everything in the universe is anions and cations rubbing against one another, creating variance frequencies that create what we are and what we see and lay things down. Well, pretty much all food is cationic, having this downward clockwise spin, except for lemons, they're anionic. And so if you do the juice of a lemon, at least drinking a concentrated lemon with each meal. So I have people do a minimum of 1 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon, about 9 ounces of distilled water, and drinking a third of that after each meal. That lemon causes those cation-anionic interactions. And when you have cations and anions rubbing against it, it creates energy. So you get more energy from your food. The lemon provides basic amino acids for your liver to make enzymes. The lemon stimulates the liver. The lemon alkalizes the body. There's so many benefits to lemon. It's not even funny. They don't have to be organic. You should wash them. But the fresh juice of a lemon, each day, particularly drinking some concentrated lemon after your meals, avoiding food sensitivities, and just a general cleanup of your environment will start anybody to a basic healthier lifestyle.
One of the best detoxifiers, in my opinion, naturally, are lemons. First thing in the morning on an empty belly, without ice water, do it with a lukewarm water and with distilled water, and yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. Then the other one I love that you shared was the spelt, and you got into the wheat, because we remember back in the day it was the amber waves of grain, and we had the wheat before it was just pounced on. It was these 6 feet tall layers of grain, and now organic grain might only be 18 inches. It's just it's just completely changed. So even the organic wheat, I couldn't agree more with what you said.
I had a guy from Eden's Market. It's a great gluten-free place just up the street from my office, and he is highly involved with the celiac associations and stuff like that. And they report that there's up to 18 different DNA strands in the wheat in this country, versus one strand in wheat from like Italy or Russia or something to that effect. So, what we've done and we ask why there's such an incidence of food intolerances and stuff like that, and they say we don't know. I mean, I could start going into autism. I could start going into all types of things. If you start building yourself with quality food and not doing stressors to the digestive tract and improving overall well-being across the board, you're going to see change. Natural medicine works.
It does. This last section before I let you go, I just love to kind of just pepper you with a couple questions. And the first one I always love to ask is the best advice you ever got in the years and years you've been in practice, or even prior to.
Be yourself. I at church, used to go to our church. He used to be an ex lineman on the Pittsburgh Steelers, Pete Rostowski. He goes around, does things, and used to hang out, and he'd always just come up and say, be you. And that was probably it, because I know that my brain works different than everybody. And I think God put something in all of us. And I think be yourself is really key to keeping me focused on, okay, let's make sure that I'm able to use my gifts to help others.
Love it. Best, what makes you a health nut?
Passion.
You can hear it in your voice, my friend.
Yeah, I'd say passion. I think it's I think if you don't have health, what do you have?
Yeah, you can't take any of these worldly possessions that a lot of people want to acquire with you. And we work tirelessly for the one day to enjoy the fruits of our labor. But if it's spent in a nursing home instead of these years, what good are we doing?
Exactly.
Good resource, invaluable resource, something you maybe turn your patients on, or something you would recommend they pick up.
One is, if you go to my radio show or my website, Pittsburgh Alternative Health, I have all those radio shows listed, and I use my radio shows as a teaching form.
Yeah.
I don't use them as buy this product today. So I always send them there. And people who want to learn more about Dr. Carrie Reams and getting an understanding of what's called Reams' biological theory of ionization, there's a website called Brixman, BRIXMAN.com, and you can just get an idea. But on my website, I also did an article, that I recently had published in Naturopathic Doctor News and Review about understanding bioelectric chemistry. And it might sound like a complicated subject, but I try to make it. I want people to look and say, wow, you can analyze and really understand that about people. And it gives a direction of understanding, not a direction of guessing what I have and guessing what to take based upon. It's more or less a cause and effect relationship of understanding how things work.
Yeah, I think you really summarized it great today and made it simple with a ton of take-home knowledge for the audience to share. If somebody wants to find you, how do they go about it?
Website, PittsburghAlternativeHealth.com. It's all typed out. You type my name, Darrell Misak, M-I-S-A-K. Believe me, I pop up. It goes to my website and things like that. Our office is 412-563-1600. Thank you. Yeah.
So, Dr. Misak, can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your years of experience with the audience. So just thank you, and look forward. Maybe we can do this again sometime.
That was fun. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're right. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
So, you've heard from the experts yourself this episode and have gotten some golden nuggets on health. There is so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to pghcw.com. Again, that's pghcw.com. And sign up for our newsletter where you'll receive free info on how to get and stay healthy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and please leave a review.